Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Here's Eddie Frederick.
Welcome to Caribbean Perspective. So glad you can join us. The story that dominates in today's edition for Wednesday, 16th July 2025, and brought to you in association with our friends at Antillean Group. Jamaica to support regional collaboration on crime fighting. Details after this important message.
Believe in our strength, we'll stand by you. Protection from all, perils big and small. Reassurance we give, it's so glad to see. Peace of mind, that's our service guarantee. We look after all our family. Yes, we do at every opportunity.
Antillean Group, underwriters of all classes of insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.
The hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safety and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftops and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
Welcome back. The government of Jamaica is working with regional leaders to combat transnational crime. More in this CVM News item as reported by Anthony Lugg.
National Security Minister Dr. Horace Chang, Police Commissioner Dr. Kevin Blake, and other members of the Police High Command gathered following a high-level meeting with stakeholders this week.
A lot of discussion how we can collaborate with our Caribbean neighbors and not only mitigate the gang activities in their country, but also help them to reverse some of the activities. If they don't get to where we are, we wish ill on no one.
With gang violence and arms trafficking on the rise, Caribbean law enforcement and political leaders met this week in a show of regional unity. Police Commissioner Dr. Kevin Blake insists the partnership is critical to the success.
Anything that we're up against, we have to first understand it. And in understanding it, all the different pieces of the puzzle must be put together. And so it is out of these types of deliberation that we have had some of the most profound security structure in the region.
In his address at the 49th CARICOM Heads of Government meeting, Chairman Dr. Andrew Holness argued that the escalating violence in the region has evolved far beyond traditional street crime level, posing a threat to regional security.
So it is absolutely important that we come together as a region so that our individual publics can see and appreciate that they are not alone in this problem. That the gangs in Jamaica likely have a connection with gangs in St. Lucia, in Trinidad, in Haiti, in the Bahamas. And that there needs to be joint, coordinated action.
Jamaica has been lauded for its crime-fighting efforts with a 41% reduction in murders when compared to last year. The success has been attributed to a major investment in national security. But for Dr. Kevin Blake,
saying is that chain is as strong as its weakest link. So we can't be for a moment fooled by the fact that because we have been doing well in Jamaica, that means security for Jamaica is guaranteed. If our neighbors, if there is insecurity in our neighboring state. And so it is important that we share best practices, but also important that we learn from our neighbors.
The high-level regional meeting ended with promise of greater collaboration. Stakeholders all agree the fight against transnational crime will require sustained political will and resources. Anthony Lugg, TVJ News.
Making closer connections between Africa and the Caribbean intensified over the past few months, with the government of St. Kitts and Nevis forging embryonic links with Africa's most populated country, Nigeria. In recent times, the government indicated its interest in making the Federation a hub of trade between Nigeria and the Eastern Caribbean. Glenn Bard of SKN Newsline reports.
This push towards stronger ties with Nigeria is a method that all political parties in the Federation must be committed to if linkages are to work in the medium to long terms. During a recent press conference of the People's Labour Party, SKN Newsline queried Dr. Harris on the development of trade ties with Nigeria.
There's a lot of work still to be done and to be coordinated. In terms of St. Kitts really in terms of merchandise trade is very small, very insignificant. Very, very insignificant. Our biggest merchandise export had been the electronics manufacturing. Years back we had somewhat of a vibrant manufacturing sector with Harrow, with all those others, Kajola, Lutron, etc., and all of those. They have basically over time been faced with the reality that they were no longer competitive in some respect and had to close, relocated some to other arenas. So that will continue to be, how do we find the competitiveness to make it worthwhile? The government needs to do a proper study of this. We had, for example, in the past, had a large contingent of persons from Nigeria coming to study, for example, at Windsor University. You may call that a trade in services over time because of hardships there and here too that had basically been reduced significantly. I suspect there are going to have to be a lot of collaboration if these things are going to be sustainable, and it is something that from the level of CARICOM they are now putting some thought into, and we ourselves must try to find our own niche in relation to that.
It is unclear at this time what specific approaches the government will undertake in the short and medium terms to facilitate the proposed trade linkages. Glenn Bart reporting for SKN Newsline.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick,
in association with our friends at
Antillean Group, underwriters of all classes of insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.
Minister of National Security of the Bahamas, Wayne Monroe, responds to claims of an immigration crisis by the leader of the opposition, Michael Pintard. Details in this ZNS News item.
The Davis administration isn't mincing words about its stance on immigration. In fact, the Minister of National Security, the Honorable Wayne Monroe, hosting a press conference this evening from the onset declaring that the issue is a very important one for the country. And he backed that up with the bold declaration that the government has overseen the largest number of repatriations in the modern history of the Bahamas, going on to tout that it has conducted 13,000 repatriations in just under 4 years, the strongest immigration enforcement record, he said, of any government.
This achievement represents operational decisions, boots on the ground, and the coordinated enforcement from the Department of Immigration, the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, and our international partners. These repatriations have reduced the migrant population in the detention center to just 50 people, and that is an historic low.
Now, Minister Monroe was responding to comments made at the Opposition Free National Movement's press conference on immigration earlier this afternoon, noting that it was short on vision and new ideas and full of distortion and spin. The National Security Minister also explained the country's foreign labor policy after the opposition's claims there's a reported increase in foreign labor.
No foreign national enters the Bahamas from Haiti without an approved visa. They must have a return ticket, and they must show proof of funds. We know when they arrive, and we know when they leave. The system is stronger than it has ever been. Although we know that is not the same thing as saying there are no challenges. We continue to invest millions to better it.
Trinidad and Tobago's Ministry of Health is urging people to take extra care against mosquitoes. They remind the public that the Aedes aegypti mosquito transmits mosquito-borne diseases such as dengue, chikungunya, and Zika. TTT News has more.
In this rainy season, the Ministry of Health is urging people to take extra care against mosquitoes. They remind that the Aedes aegypti mosquito transmits mosquito-borne diseases such as dengue, chikungunya, and Zika. The Ministry of Health is also cautioning citizens that the best means of reducing the incidence of mosquito-borne diseases is through the elimination of the breeding sites of the Aedes species mosquito. Here are some ways you can help. 1. Dispose of all unwanted articles, derelict vehicles, or appliances in the yard, which can collect water and become mosquito breeding grounds. 2. Cover water containers such as tanks, barrels, drums, or buckets with a mosquito-proof covering. 3. Cut down and remove all bush or undergrowth that can harbor mosquitoes. 4. Clear drains and guttering to allow for the free flow of water. 5. Use mosquito nets and insect repellent when appropriate as a means of personal protection.
A strong warning to Barbadians who sully Barbados' good name while seeking asylum in Canada. It comes from Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade Kerry Simmons. He says some people who have gone to Canada as refugees are reaching out to him for help because they are now facing difficulties. However, the minister has a message for them.
Every case that people do this, they are now doing serious injury to the reputation of the country, and they do serious injury to the confidence that the Canadian government can have in Barbados, and it is perhaps people see it as a personal privilege to be able to try that, but it is also a serious consequence to the wider Barbadian community and the reputation of Barbados as a jurisdiction. These are some of the things that people do, the games people play. But, on one hand, you can't ask for government to be helping you and protecting you when you have difficulty overseas, when you yourself do injury to the country overseas for your own narrow personal ambition.
Moreover, Minister Simmons says there has been no mass deportation of Barbadians from the United States as U.S. President Donald Trump continues with his promise to deport illegal aliens. He also says he has given instructions that the dossier be prepared on any person being returned from the United States. Minister Simmons notes this is effectively the best practice going forward and will be implemented for all Barbadians being deported from any country.
We want to be able to have sufficient advanced knowledge of who it is that is coming back. We want to be able to be sure that if that person needs assistance with housing, that we're in a position to deal with that. We want to be able to be sure that if that person is deported in circumstances where they have a criminal record, what is the nature of the criminal record, how serious have been the crimes and the criminal offenses committed, and therefore that enables us to do the kind of national security considerations that we must do in order to ensure that that individual is not just reintegrated into the society and we do not know what they are capable of or have done or what connections they have, but rather that we manage the reintegration process in such a way that they do not become a threat to the wider community themselves.
The long-awaited ferry service should be a reality within the coming months. That's the word from the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade of Barbados, Kerry Simmons, who was commenting on closing statements made by the CARICOM chair and the Prime Minister of Jamaica, Dr. Andrew Holness. Minister Simmons says the agreement is between Barbados and Guyana for cargo only, but they are hopeful to include passengers shortly. Additionally, Minister Simmons says governments are looking to see how best a person wanting to travel to other islands via the ferry with their vehicles can do so, similar to how it is done in Trinidad and Tobago. Minister Simmons has been named lead foreign minister along with Jamaica's Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith. He says this will mean enhanced port facilities, a mutual recognition of vehicle registration and driver's licenses, harmonization of vehicle insurance policies, and removal of non-tariff barriers and enhanced customs clearance.
The intention is to have a connectivity across the island chain. So, for example, that those products which may be brought from Guyana to Barbados may now then be carried also to St. Vincent, may also be carried to Dominica. The intention, however, is to go beyond just moving cargo. We also want to find a way of moving people and to move people at inexpensive rates. Discussions with the Caribbean Private Sector Organization indicate that they are on board. The discussions now turn on how we can drive the costs down, and the ambition is to have those costs per person well beneath 100 United States dollars per trip, and therefore making access between the islands far more competitive for a wider swath of people than they now are.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean.
In the meantime, please follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel for daily regional news and more, in association with our friends at Antillian Group.
Believe in our strength, we'll stand by you. Protection from all perils, big and small. Reassurance we give, it's so clear to see. Peace of mind, that's our service guarantee. We look after all our family. Yes, we do at every opportunity.
Antillian Group, underwriters of all classes of insurance solutions for your protection and investment. Live well financially.